Welcome to NMI's Payment Playbook podcast. NMI delivers powerful, scalable, embedded payment solutions for ISOs, software vendors, and payment professionals. This podcast offers thoughtful conversations to help you unlock growth, innovate fearlessly, and thrive in the payments landscape. NMI, powering endless possibilities in payments.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to NMI's Payment Playbook podcast. I'm Greg Myers, the host of the show, and on today's episode, our special guests are Peter Galvin, the Chief Marketing Officer here at NMI, and Austin Talley, the CEO and founder of Everyware. Today, we're starting our three-part series on trends affecting payment providers. During this series, we're going to be discussing embedded payments, AI in payments, regulations, and more. Today, Peter, Austin, and I will be talking about embedded payments. So, welcome to the show.
Hey, excited to be here, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Greg. It's great to be here.
All right. Well, let's get started. So, Austin, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your company.
Yeah, so about myself, been a software engineer now for over 20 years. Prior to becoming CEO and founder, I was in the grind in the programming world, but ultimately always dreamed of develop my own software product that would hence be everywhere. So that's what I set out to build. And, today we're a combination of communication and payments, really wrapped around embedded payments. And we really offer our solution from the smallest business in the world up to some of the largest. So really excited to be here, Greg.
Okay, great. So Peter, same question, a little bit about yourself, your background, and maybe about your role here at NMI.
Sure. So I've been in the SaaS software kind of business for the last 25 years, mostly focused around product and marketing roles. Prior to NMI, I was with more security-focused companies, so doing security and encryption, more specifically for like EMV payments and end-to-end processing of credit card transactions and PCI compliance. So more recently, I've been with NMI for about 2.5 years. I'm responsible for marketing and our go-to-market execution here at NMI.
Awesome. So, Austin, before we dive in, could you talk a little bit about the NMI Everywhere partnership?
Yeah, no, happy to do so. We have a great partnership with NMI, and really where our two companies come together. NMI is a powerful gateway, widely accepted, and where Everywhere helps add value is really on the communication side. Really helping, whether it's customers that want to get paid faster through solutions like pay by text, where Everywhere adds a pay by text extension to NMI, so to speak, or the combination of just being able to have two-way text conversations to help mitigate risk. Ultimately, we try to find a faster path to fighting off a chargeback or a dispute before it even happens. And that's where communication comes in. And texting is something that, allows everyone to communicate on their own time, much like different than a phone call or where typically just goes to voicemail these days. But you fire off a text message, get a response, whether it's 30 minutes or 2 hours, and it's socially acceptable. So we found it's very powerful when you add that type of service combined with such a great solution that NMI offers today.
Okay, great. So thanks for sharing that. So one of the biggest trends, as you guys both know, in payments is embedding payments. And I'd go so far to say that it's almost becoming now embedded finance, meaning products beyond just payments, loans, payroll, checking accounts, other types of fintech solutions. But for today, we're going to focus on payments. So Austin, can you speak to your view on this trend? Like, when did you start to see it and how would you define it?
Yeah, the trend's definitely been around for quite some time, but really accelerated throughout COVID, where everyone was just really forced to go digital, so to speak. All these larger companies that they probably would have loved to have given it another 5 years, and hence in healthcare, where typically they wanted to send paper statements, that was really being replaced by sending out a text message and getting paid faster. So seeing these trends that went online, because back then they really had to during the pandemic, they had no chance of ever going back to the old way of doing things, because that's, for one, was just too costly to send so much paper. And then the fact that somebody actually has to log onto a portal, open up the envelope, that can just take days or weeks to get paid. Whereas providing a faster solution, like sending a text message to get paid, ultimately it's really solved for a lot of those problems. And I really see that really in the future, where embedded payments should be treated much more like a card present transaction, with cheaper interchange. So I really see that really being the direction where we're headed. And what I mean by that is that since everything is now contactless, nobody's really even asking for a driver's license these days. If you think about even tap to pay, well, that's embedded payments on our iPhone, right? Or on our Samsung device. So you're really seeing that as being something that is going to be around for a very long time. And I don't see that being displaced or going back to the old way where, we were pulling credit cards out of our wallet.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. So, Peter, what is the value of embedding payments? And if you don't mind, try to answer this from a couple of perspectives, maybe, the partner level, the merchant level, and the consumer.
Yeah, sure. So I would agree with Austin in that embedded payments has really been this digitization of paper processes. And so I think there's a number of different advantages of embedded payments, especially thinking about like a seamless buying and checkout experience. So you think about having to go through different disparate steps or interfaces or windows to buy something. Now you're buying something in an application or in a system, and your experience is the same. So you have the same kind of general experience going through that. So if you think about today in embedded payments, most of the partners that we work with, whether they're independent sales organizations or software companies, they actually are providing some level of software. And might be as simple as like a software POS system, or it could be more complex like an industry-specific vertical software offering. But for those types of partners, there's a number of advantages. First of all, it just simplifies the whole payment process, and it includes the payment process as part of the whole buying environment or part of that whole application. And so it makes the payment a lot faster, a lot more convenient. In many cases, as Austin mentioned, you don't need to pull out a credit card, right? You can do it either through some type of digital process. So it can really lead for the partner, can lead to a more efficient process, can lead to more automated reporting, for example, so that all the reporting information is in the same place, what somebody bought, how they paid. And then, on the back end, you can look at residuals and things like that. So it really can reduce a lot of the manual efforts and operational costs that partners have had in the past. And if we think about merchants, there's a lot of similar benefits there, like better operational efficiency, a better way to understand the customer journey. So you're always, as a merchant, you're always trying to, how do I maintain my customer relationships? How do I keep them going? And so making sure that that's a simple, easy process. And it also can be a competitive advantage to those merchants. So if those merchants have embedded payments as part of their overall offering, then versus somebody who hasn't, the merchant is able to control the entire experience for that consumer. So that consumer then has a more convenient and faster buying experience, and then that consumer may have more overall brand loyalty. And then when you think of the consumers themselves, right, what BJ always says, who's our CEO, is the best payment experience is one you never had. And so if you think about it, an embedded payment offering is something that just happens as part of your interface with that software component or with that application. And therefore, you're not like taken to another site, or you're not having to actually do something very specific to make a payment. The payment information is already there. You can do that simply with one simple click. And so for consumers, it's like one integrated experience, which leads to a lot more comfort around the payment, a lot more comfort around the brand, and also assuages many of the security concerns that some of those consumers might have.
Makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about embedded payments within vertical software companies and ISVs. Obviously, a large part of what NMI does is serve those types of customers. So let's talk about it from that perspective. Peter, we'll stick with you. From a product or solution perspective, what does NMI provide software companies?
So what we provide is an embedded payments accepted platform. So software companies can use our entire platform to be able to onboard a merchant, underwrite a merchant, and then quickly take payments. And the benefit of that is they can do that in a number of ways. So they can use an API to integrate with our system. They can use no-code or low-code applications to create checkout experiences. So we really try to provide our partners with the ability to manage the entire life cycle of a merchant, from the initial prospecting to underwriting to instantly onboarding them to an NMI gateway or even a third-party gateway, to integrating with a processor so they can quickly take payments. And we do this all through partners. So we are a white label service that really helps and enables our partners, so that our partners are the ones providing these types of services, and we're really the back end infrastructure for that. And then once they start taking payments, then we provide full reporting back to both the merchant and to the partner, so they can understand what's happening from their payments environment, what their residuals might be, if there are any chargebacks, et cetera. So they have all that information in one system.
Okay. So Austin, same question for you. What does Everywhere provide for vertical software companies and ISVs?
Yeah, well, vertical software companies, really, you're seeing this shift where now they're becoming really or acting like payment processors, right? And for a while there, you're hearing about these buzz around PayFacs and what have you. So much like it with NMI offers, these vertical software companies is a one-stop shop solution where they can have everything they need to be and act like a payment processor, so to speak, and be able to capitalize and open up new revenue streams for these ISVs where now they can partake in, residuals and make money on their credit card processing, in addition to offering just a better overall experience for their customers. So with Everywhere, we work with, and we're agnostic, so we work with companies like NMI and much of the other, call it, acquirers and gateways out there today, whether it's a white label solution, a semi-integrated solution, or just a fully integrated solution, just that all-in-one that encompasses from underwriting to onboarded to life after the merchant, when they're up and running. We offer that full service. And you're really seeing that becoming more of a shift away from the traditional payment processors that have been around for, feels like 100 years, where these software companies really want to make money now on payments as well. In addition to that, you're really seeing it also, whereas these businesses want to be able to pay out money faster, right? Whether it's paying employees, which Everywhere offers today, or it's the ability to, help software companies like in legal, where they have large settlements, where traditionally they would issue out paper checks for these settlements, such as class action lawsuits, where now they're basically sending you a text message and do you want to accept it to your debit card or your banking card, and receiving these funds in 30 minutes or less. So you're seeing these types of solutions being packaged up and fully embedded into the software companies now to be offered to their businesses for an overall better experience.
Right. Makes sense. So, Peter, we continue to see embedded payments proliferate in the software segment of the market, with some estimates I've read that say 50% of small businesses are already using software for payments. It's a huge number. But what are some of the other technologies you're seeing in this space around biometric, soft POS, contactless? Where do you see those kind of other technologies fitting into this conversation?
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about this space is that we really started with big, giant, horizontal software companies like Salesforce and Workday. And now we've really moved to these very specific vertical offerings. So we have partners who have software companies that are providing specific offerings to companies that do gym software, spa software, hair salons, home services, like including plumbing, electrical, HVAC. You've got kind of practice management software for doctors and dentists. And they all have different kind of requirements depending on, are you going to pay in person? Are you paying online? Are you going to pay through a text message, for example? So there's a lot of different requirements for these different businesses. I think for us, going back to kind of what Austin said, was one of the biggest trends we're seeing with these software companies is really how do they monetize that payment stream? So in the past, they would actually kind of have to hand off that payment capability to someone else. Now they want to integrate that payment into their processing. They want to make money from that payment. And they want to make sure they're PCI compliant as well. And so those are kind of the key factors. And then based on the vertical they're serving, they may have different ways that they want to play. So, for example, if you think about services industries where somebody is actually coming to your house, electrician or a plumber, they have specific things that they're looking for. And so what we're seeing there is really, contactless payments is really the preferred payment mechanism, right? So including tap to pay on a payment device or, a payment puck, as we call them, or just paying to a POS on the phone. I think in many cases, what we're really going to see is we're just going to see that payment device kind of disappear into either a phone or a laptop, or you're going to see somebody's going to get an SMS for their bill or their invoice to their phone, so that really you're never taking out, quote unquote, a true payment device. You're either using a digital wallet on your phone or you're tapping your phone to another phone that has that payment capability in their environment. So those are kind of the real things we're seeing, which is like either seeing less devices in the world and more this integration with, a phone or a tablet for both the service industry and then a lot of the other industries where they're just like replacing their POS systems, specific POS systems, with more generalized systems that are tablets and phones to be able to use digital payments to do that.
Okay. And Austin, anything to add there to Peter's comments?
Yeah, just what Peter said there, which is basically comes down to we all now have a terminal in our pocket. So you're really going to see this shift. In fact, that Visa's coming out with, for instance, this cloud tokenization product that really turns every device into a terminal in a way that it cannot be charged back. And what I mean by that is that once a consumer transacts on this device and this device is now trusted, and again, this can be through a checkout experience from just a shopping cart, if it leverages a cloud-based token and this device is now provisioned in the network, this device goes anywhere it wants, makes a payment. This transaction is going to be treated like a card present transaction. And in addition to that, the chargeback, the consumer cannot say, this is not me for fraud. You know what I mean? Whereas today, if I give you my credit card, you can go anywhere you want right now. Nobody's even asking for a driver's license. So the device, and I've been saying this for a long time, is really our identity, right? It's becoming more or less a multi-factor authentication method for us that if this person basically was to charge back, well, we have their phone number, we have their device fingerprint, we have all these other data points to go off of to prove that this individual is who they say they are. And that's what you're seeing these card networks really trying to catch up to. And Visa's, just a few weeks away from launching their cloud tokenization product that just that. It's really good to see finally that taking place versus, these traditional old terminals that have been around for, again, 100 years, I feel.
Right. So, Austin, let's stay with you. I mean, we've talked about kind of where we are today, a little bit about where things are going in the short term, but what do you think is the future of embedded payments? Where are we really headed long term?
Yeah, so long term, in addition to where I just walked through, everyone having a terminal in their pocket and cloud tokenization and these transactions that were typically treated as a card not present are now being treated like card present. So you're really going to see really interchange adjust to this new world of digital payments. And that's really exciting because ultimately I feel like a lot of these merchants, they're getting hit with these higher fees, even though they're offering a safer way to pay. And it's really great to finally see that the card networks themselves are really making this shift to really support embedded payment solutions in a way where we're not being penalized. So I really feel that soon to be in April, where we always see these interchange fees go up, we're going to soon see new interchange go down for card not present transactions.
Okay. Peter, any thoughts on the future of embedded payments?
Well, yeah, I think the comment about tokenization is really key, where you're going to see the card networks doing more network tokenization as well as being able to tokenize your payment device. And so that tokenized payment device will be much easier to store that somewhere. And so again, not needing a physical card, but you've stored it now in your digital wallet and makes it much more easier to pay. I think also that for software companies, as they're looking to actually do the embedded payment, having multiple components, whether they're simple APIs or no code or low code solutions, to be able to integrate that embedded payment into their system. So it's pretty easy. And then being able to modify it. So whatever checkout page they use or whatever they're trying to do from a payment standpoint, it looks like and is part of their actual product. I think that's really the key trend, is that having a white labeled offering or having components that they can integrate into their software so it looks like part of their existing software environment is going to be key for them.
Okay. Well, Peter, if you don't mind, as we close out the show, can you kind of give us a brief summary of the key takeaways? Obviously, NMI stakeholders run from partners to software companies to ISVs, banks, PayFacs. So can you kind of give us a brief summary of this episode for these key stakeholders?
Sure. I think that the first part is that software and embedded payments are here to stay, and they're really a way of servicing the small and medium-sized businesses. Like most of our partners and software companies are servicing those kind of companies. And the traditional way they were serviced was maybe through a POS system. Now the traditional way that they're going to be serviced is through software. So software is really, as people say, eating the world, and that's the direction it's going to go to. So as a partner or a company, as you're thinking about it, how do you participate in that embedded payments lifecycle, and how do you participate and provide value into that marketplace? I think the second part is really, we're seeing more new payment methods are being used. We're seeing the digitization of payments. We're seeing more digital wallets. We're seeing more digital payments, and that's really where things are going to go. And then, the other part is, how do you integrate and embed payments into your system? So making sure that you have an understanding of what APIs you need or what low code or no code solutions you want to use. And then finally, I think as any partner or any software company looking for embedded payments is really understanding like what is the vertical that you support, what are the payments needs of those merchants and those consumers, and then what are the offerings that you need to provide to those consumers so that they can be very successful. And I think that, it's kind of like not always one size fits all. A practice management system in a dental office versus maybe a services oriented software component, software application, they're different and their way that consumers use them are different. And so understanding how a consumer wants to use those and how they might want to pay becomes very important as you're looking at embedded payments.
Okay. Austin, anything you want to add there before we wrap up?
I would just say that I believe that the PAN information, those credit card numbers really are just a thing of the past and they do nothing but get everyone in trouble. So ultimately, I just see that in itself shift in a way to leveraging like what Peter walked through with network tokenization. The future is really lots of white space. So really excited to see, especially with the FedNow program, as far as faster money movement, really seeing the shift of like consumers and businesses really just becoming more or less one and just really changing the whole merchant processing landscape. Similar to how like these Cash App and Venmos, have changed peer-to-peer movement of money. I'm really going to see how businesses and consumers are going to really interact much faster than they do today, where, you got to wait sometimes a couple of days to get paid.
Okay. Well, thank you both for your time today. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Join us next time for our second episode in our series on trends affecting payments providers. And thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to NMI's Payment Playbook podcast. To subscribe or learn more about our flexible, modular approach to embedded payment solutions, visit nmi.com/resources/podcasts.